other committee audits, and they're still in process, but thank you for my colleagues, Councilmember Parks, Councilmember Cardenas, for being here. We have 5 items on the agenda, and we'll go ahead with number 1, please.
The City Administrative Officer and Board of Police Commissioners are reporting relative to the supplemental award for the Law Enforcement Response to Human Trafficking Program. This item has been heard by the Public Safety Committee, and they have recommended approval of the CO recommendations. This item is also referred to Budget and Finance Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Go first, second, third,
Go first.
whatever your preference.
Camilla Fong, Office of the CAO.
Okay.
Kimberly Akabonpuller, LAPD.
Carlos Velez, Lieutenant, LAPD.
Okay, who wants to begin? Flip a
Kimberly,
coin?
go
Okay.
But I guess what the committee is going to be looking at is the MA2 position that is part of the that acts as the program manager for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Task Force on Trafficking. Basically, initially, the first grant that we got provided full funding for that position. This grant that you're looking at right now is basically a supplemental grant, $200,000 for a 21-month period. It does not provide funding for the position, only to conduct investigations of human trafficking incidents. However, we did have funding from the previous grant that would allow a 35% continuance for the salary of the MA2.
Well, how much the general fund is going to be paying for this? Or is it all going to be
No, 35% will be paid out of the grant for that
35%? So the rest of it's going to be paid out of general?
out of the general fund.
Okay, the general funds already has a major deficit, so what do we do? How do we pay for something we don't have the money?
Well, it's an existing position.
I understand that, but the question is, how do we pay for it? The police department's over budget, the city's in the red when it comes to finances. Mr. Parks, the Chair of Budget and Finance, we have a major deficit. How do we appropriate something where we don't have the money to pay for? That's my question.
Excuse me, can you?
Even though it's an existing
clarify
position.
what the general fund amount would be?
100,000.
I didn't even calculate that.
$100,000?
Yeah, that's the matching.
So how do we approve something if there's no money and we're talking deficit? That's the question I have. I have no problem with the process of doing it, but how are we going to pay for it? And if we don't have money to pay for it, then I don't know how we approve it.
Yeah, the original match is 150, this match is 100.
Right, this
So-
match was 100 and,
So we lost.
No, it was
50,000.
150, now it's 100. That's my understanding, unless
Right.
I'm reading this wrong. It says the original grants match requirement was 150. Now I'm
and this
looking at
match
my
was
notes.
actually, yes, it was 100.
This is considered a supplemental.
Right, and this is just for
150 total.
conducting investigations. But the program manager position, the department is asking to retain that position because that position is vital to the operation of the task force. And also with the supplemental funding, that position will be critical in capturing all of the information regarding the cases and so forth.
I have no problem with that. My question is how are we going to pay for it, Mr. Cardenas?
Okay, I have a feeling that whether this person is doing this work, this officer is going to be doing some other work.
Yes,
and this
that-
officer is still going to be on payroll.
Yes,
And the fact of the matter is, I think we need to ask this question on the record. The work of the Human Trafficking Task Force and this position, is it outside the scope and responsibilities of our police department?
is it outside the scope?
Is it outside the scope? And
No,
in other words, we're not adding.
You're not adding any-
We're not adding additional responsibilities to the police department. We're just addressing one of the issues that the police department already has with the work of the task force and the person in this position.
True.
Correct?
True.
So even if we didn't approve this item, I think that the general fund would still be impacted in the same fashion. We would just be void of this particular work from this particular individual.
True.
So this individual is handling more than one function?
Actually, I'm the person that sits in the position. Not only do I support the task force, I also do other tasks for robbery homicide division. I act as the budget coordinator. I also do other projects. So I'm dedicated to the task force, but I also support the division as a whole.
So you got multi-functions.
Yes, I do, sir.
Is that your lieutenant?
I'm sorry?
Is that
Yes,
your-
this is my lieutenant.
What do you have to- Let's hear from the lieutenant.
Yes, sir. She not only is critical from an administrative standpoint, but when we're handling our investigations and we're out in the field, that phone is constantly ringing on other calls, and she's a person that remains there at the station and is able to communicate for us, take other calls, and act as a somewhat of a command post for us.
So you already have, you're already there. Are you a management analyst too?
Yes, sir.
So I'm trying to figure out, you're already there as a management analyst too, funded through a combined grant city funds, and I'm trying to find out what other than to get the grant money, what the difference is. We're not hiring a new person.
No, sir.
We're not bringing another body. So it's a huge.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? We will be testing the fire life safety system. Please disregard any alarms you see or hear. Once again, we will be testing the fire life safety system. Please disregard any alarms you see or hear. Thank you.
They already did that once.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, so if we look at this in the broader perspective of the general fund and the tightening of the belt of all departments, including the police department, the thing that I see in this matter is I think that this position is likely going to continue even after that evaluation, which is by and large going to be handled through the budget process over the next couple of months. This position is likely going to continue to be in place, and these duties are going to continue to be there because, without question, this is an issue facing Los Angeles, and what would make it difficult for us to pull back on our activities is the fact that we have actually fortified ourselves with a very successful network and process, and your position is now more active than ever before, correct? And the fact of the matter is, when you look at priorities for the society of Los Angeles, when you look at priorities for the police department, when you look at the issue of human trafficking, and that is truly modern-day slavery. That is truly an issue of horrendous crimes where they're actually holding people as slaves. They're actually forcing them to either, in some cases, work as slaves or actually work in prostitution and things of that nature against their will.
I understand. I don't deny any of that. My question is, the dollars that we're going to apply, where's that coming from? You're already there. You're going to be paid one way or another. Sure. This helps supplement that. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to debate the issue of the merits.
No, but what I'm saying is, even beyond this committee hearing, I think it would be very unlikely that this position and these responsibilities within this position would be deleted from the department.
Right.
So if in fact there's going to be positions looked at or consolidated or what have you, this is not likely one of them.
How come it was cut down from where it was originally?
Basically, what happened was the initial grant provided for 100% funding of the position. They did not hire the program manager until May of 2006. So there were salary savings from that person that kind of sat in and filled in. And those salary savings are what we're going to use now to continue that position for the next 21 months.
Okay. Mr. Parks.
Yeah. Let me just ask the CEO, are these funds still in the budget, in the LAPD budget? They've not been swept, so we clearly can know they're earmarked for this?
Thank you, Cliff.
Yes, it's still in the budget.
Still in the budget. Let me ask the police department as far as, how does the reimbursement work? Is that quarterly where you report your bills?
Yes, they draw down the funds quarterly from the Department of Justice. So every quarter they draw down for the management analyst salary, any expenditures for equipment, travel, or services that we procure.
And this particular grant covers what?
This grant is just to do human trafficking investigations.
I mean, what timeline?
It starts, actually, we received the award in September. We have not started any work because the council has not actually officially accepted the award yet.
Okay, but it starts September 08?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Through August 2009.
So if we're on schedule, we should get 3/4 of this money, before the fiscal year, next fiscal year?
Yes, once the council adopts the award, we will then conduct the task force operations And once we start the operations, we will be drawing down the overtime expenditures to pay for the officers' overtime. Right now, we have not spent any of this money until the award is officially accepted by the city.
I would just ask that, and again, I agree with that we should go forward, but I would just ask that whatever efforts can be made to make sure that we get timely reimbursements, that those are done, and ask the CAO and the police department to make sure that those quarterly bills are timely and that we're getting the reimbursement. Because if we do it right, probably 3/4 of the money would be in before the end of next fiscal year.
Yes, it would be.
So with that support from Mr. Parks, you want to waive it from Budget and Finance Committee?
That's fine, as long as we have that instruction.
Okay, so that's instruction given. We'll waive it from Budget and Finance Committee, so you don't have to go to another committee. Mr. Cardenas makes the motion.
I just want to point out that I've been very, very involved in this issue,
Yes, you
and I didn't want to taint my comments by talking about how involved my office has been in it. But the fact of the matter is, we've come so far as a city in such a short period of time that nationally, from Washington and other cities, they're actually looking at what we're doing in Los Angeles to actually get off the ground and actually have human trafficking efforts and task force in other cities. So I'm glad that we're moving this item forward because all of these components are critical, and we are, in fact, trying to be as efficient as possible and do as much work as we can. So good
And
work.
if I can mention, we were one of 3 task forces out of 42 offered this supplemental funding. So it was only offered to those task forces that were showing progress, doing a lot of outreach and training. So we were one of 3 that were offered this supplemental grant.
Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All righty. Matter is approved and seconded and approved. And now let's go to number 2, please.
The mayor has submitted a memorandum for the re-exemption of 3 deputy general manager airports, 2 positions in the Los Angeles World Airports. This request has been subsequently submitted as an amendment, and that is under item 3.
So actually,
So
item
item
number
2 is-
2 has now become item number 3?
Correct. So item 2 would need to be received and filed.
So receive and file. So item number 2 will receive and file. Okay, so we're going to receive and file number 2, and let's go to number 3.
On item 3, you have mayor memorandum relative to exemptions for the Los Angeles World Airports. This is for the 3 deputy general managers as well as controller, and this is due to the reorganization of the department.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Paula Adams, Los Angeles World Airports Personnel Director. As you know, our General Manager, Gina Marie Lindsay, recently reorganized the department, and she is taking LAWA from planning to building. And there is no local precedent which matches the scale and scope of the work necessary to rebuild LAX. And the proposed structure looks towards the next 5 to 7 years and is designed to fully support the LAX development program and deliver a robust and complex $8 to $12 billion capital improvement program. Staff is ready to launch the process for design and construction that we expect to take the better part of a decade to complete. We acknowledge that we are asking the Personnel Committee to help us take a huge step towards reaching our goal, and that is completing one of the world's largest airport improvement programs in terms of magnitude, complexity, and schedule. And we look forward to your favorable consideration of our request. There are 4 Deputy Executive Director exemptions before you, one for Operations and Maintenance, LAX Development Planning, Finance and Budget, Customer Service Marketing, and Public Relations. The Finance and Budget Deputy position was vacated in early February when the incumbent transferred to the Harbor Department. The Operations and Maintenance Deputy position was vacated when the incumbent was asked to assume a lower level role within LAWA's organizational structure. LAX development planning, customer service, marketing, and public relations are both new.
I understand that the customer service was already approved previous to today.
It had been earlier exempted, I believe, in 2000, and became vacant. We did not backfill that position for some time during our former administration, but as a result of bringing in some consultants to help Gina Marie Lindsay come up with this new organizational structure, the recommendation was to reinstitute that particular position, and so we are coming back to you for
Well, no, my
exemption on
statement
that.
is, I understand that was already approved.
Government relations was approved,
Government relations was approved.
yes.
That's not on here.
That's not on there today.
So so that's a new position, government relations. correct?
Government relations is not a new position. You earlier approved that a few meetings ago.
Right.
That position became vacant when the incumbent left in February to transfer to the mayor's office.
Okay, okay. So you're looking for, in this particular position, we have re-exemption and we have new positions. And then the other question I have on this Deputy General Manager, Airports 1, Operations and Maintenance, new exemption, report to Chief Operating Officer, position responsible for directing through subordinate supervisors, operations and maintenance, and law enforcement security operations at all LAWA airports. I thought that was what Chief Butts is responsible for, the law enforcement security operations at all four. He was supposed to be in charge of that, so.
Director Butts is the Director of Airport Safety Services. All sworn and civilian police personnel do report through him. Director Butts, as a part of the overall operations of airports, will be reporting to this Deputy of Operations and Maintenance. So Director Butts is in charge of the safety and security component within operations.
And at each airport, they have a person in charge of law enforcement traffic operations.
That's correct. And those persons, those commanders, report to an assistant chief who is under Director Butts.
So it seems like you're building a lot of layers of supervision. While you're building these layers of supervision, the operations at the airport for the customers are terrible.
Right.
And I flew there recently, it was terrible. And I haven't seen any improvements. So I hope with approvals, we start seeing some progress, not 10 years down the road.
No,
Because
we,
the customer service at the airport is miserable. The baggage claim is miserable. The walks from the terminals are miserable. The concessions are less than satisfactory. And when these council members, we travel to other airports around the country, it's amazing how customer friendly they are. Whereas LAWA, they're not customer friendly at all.
yes, we fully expect, Councilman, that you will start to see improvements in our customer relations, the cleanliness of our terminals, and the types of customer services that are provided in terminals 1 through 8 as you travel in and about. We are moving towards having an airport system like Chicago O'Hare and some of these other airports that, as you state, give you an entirely different feel when you're traveling about.
Mr. Cardenas.
So with the items that are before us today, would that mean that there's an overall increase in the number of deputy general managers at the airport?
The number of deputy general managers at the airport will be 9. Presently, there are 8, or there were 8 under the old administration. There will be 9. Now, the reason that there are 2 new exemptions is because one of the earlier exemptions, we're not asking for that to be filled. So actually, there will be a net of 1.
Okay. So there'll be 9 bodies
9 bodies.
occupying positions.
That's right.
But how many general manager positions would there be room for at the airport? 10? Do you understand what I mean?
No, I don't quite understand the question.
I thought what you just expressed is there have been general manager positions that weren't filled in the past. So if you move the clock forward with what we're doing today, there will be 9 general managers at the airport occupying general manager positions.
9 assistant general managers.
Deputy.
The civil service title is Deputy General Manager Airports 1, which is the citywide equivalent of an AGM.
Okay, got it. So assistant. So the deputy is equivalent to assistant. Okay, so of the number of assistant general managers at the airport, the approved number of positions would be what number?
That would be 9.
9. And then we anticipate that should this go through, they're going to fill all the positions, so there won't be any assistant general manager positions vacant anymore.
That is correct.
Okay, so that not only will they have the approval for 9, they will have the full complement of people filling those positions so that they can do all the work that the chairman talked about bringing the airport to a better level of service.
That is correct. We'll have to go out for recruitment and selection, but it is fully anticipated that we will fill all 9 positions.
What are some examples of some of the ranges of these positions when it comes to the salaries afforded to the potential
For
people
the
being hired?
Deputy General Manager, Airports 1, over operations and maintenance, that's one of the higher level AGMs, whose salary is just about $202,000 at the 5th step. For the other 3 Deputy General Manager airports, those are lower level, whose salary is right around $185,000 at the 5th step.
Okay, thank you.
That's the lower level. Very handsome for a lower level.
We're literally competing nationwide, if not internationally, to attract the best.
That's correct.
Council members, I'd like to make just one slight correction. There's an increase not of 1 exemption, and we're looking at the 150 exempt positions. This action will increase by 2, the number that we have, and currently we're at 96.
Okay.
96 out of 150. Ms. Parsons.
Let me just, one of the things I think we run across this at EERC periodically, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. They say reorganization, but nobody's ever seen it. And then we get incremental pieces of it, so you don't know where this fits in, whether there's another batch coming. I mean, and it just, I know for myself, it just keeps you kind of off balance because you don't know really what you're approving. These positions are not in isolation, and you don't know what the units look like that they're over or what they're supervising, how many people. It's just basically give me this X number of exempt positions because we're reorganizing. And at some point in time, it just seems like we need to see what the reorganization is. Not that we're trying to overrule it, but it would make a little bit more sense and you'd see where these positions would fit.
Absolutely. Councilman, we are happy to provide you with a fully detailed organizational chart. It's in its final stages of being complete at this time. I expect that over the next 30 days or so, we will have that fully complete, and we will be happy to
Are there others coming?
There are no other exemptions.
Not exempt, but I mean, I would assume the reorganization, we're just not moving like positions. Are there positions that are talking about upgrades or things of that nature?
We have done about 40 recent internal promotions within lower level classes, for example.
Those were already existing?
Those were already existing. In terms of expanding the number of authorized positions within LAWA, there is no immediate plan to do that. Within the organizational structure, our consultant, and we agree with the consultant that there are portions of the structure where we can move positions to fully support the LAX development program. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at where there are excesses and moving generalist classes into the arenas where we need them most, and that is in the building arena.
But I would appreciate if we could get something, and I think also that when we're talking about assistant general managers and they're over that magical 200,000 mark,
yes,
it really, I think, creates a dynamic to where, as we're hammered daily about being the most overpaid city in America and all that other stuff, I think it's something that we have to be sensitive to. When you figure 9 general managers are going to be at 200,000 plus per, that's a lot of bureaucracy and overhead. And so if there's some way to get a sense of what the reorganization is, I really would appreciate it.
Understood, and we'll get that information to you.
Maybe a nice little chart.
Yes.
Laying it out.
Now you're asking on that.
Well, you're an engineer.
That's an accurate chart
You
with
could
all
engineer.
the little boxes and all the positions.
You could engineer it. And I must admit, the general manager called me, wanted to know if she should show up for this meeting. I thought that she had adequate staff to do the job to sell the project, so
Thank you.
tell her to come back next time.
I will. I will.
Okay, we got approval?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, you got it.
Thank you.
All righty. Next item, number 4, please.
For item number 4, you have a memorandum from the mayor's office relative to the re-exemption of one deputy superintendent of Building 1. This is for the Department of Building and Safety, and I believe the department is here.
Rick,
Yes.
if we're at a hiring freeze and we're broke, why are we bringing people around?
Well, the reason we need this position is this particular position is for the Code Enforcement Bureau. And
Code enforcement?
Yes. and
Who's in
the-
charge of that?
Right now is Mr. Ruben Perez,
Come up here, Mr. Perez.
and he is retiring after 37 years of services.
God bless him.
That's right.
He doesn't look that old to retire. But then again, look at Mr. Parks and then look at me.
Stop right there.
So
Who else is here representing the department?
it's just me and also Ruben and also Mr. Dave Laura here today.
Well, let him back there and relax. He's worked hard today.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm here to request for your approval to re-exempt the Assistant General Manager position, as I just mentioned, in Code Enforcement Bureau for the Department of Building and Safety. Mr. Ruben Perez will be retiring as of April the 11th, 2008. This position has been re-exempted 2 times already, approved it by the council and also by the mayor back in 1999 and as well as 2007, just last year. So Mr. Ruben Perez just finished his 1-year term and decided to pull the plug.
Well, 37 years, give him a break.
Absolutely.
It's not like he's bailing out on us.
Actually, he said the reason he stayed the last year because he really loves me. So that's the only reason he stayed that. Thank you. What it is, this particular position is supervising approximately 180 inspectors and also support staff, and they are responsible for 43,000 cases in co-enforcement related to quality of life matters, related to fire life safety matters, and also public safety matters. We need this position to be filled as soon as possible, and one of the reasons is because for the past year, because of salary savings, we have kept the assistant bureau chief positions vacant all these times. So Mr. Perez has been doing 2 people's job.
2 levels of work.
Two levels, yes. The bureau chief and assistant bureau chief. So it will be important for us to get this position re-exempt so that we could reassign another AGM into this position.
I just came out of audits and government efficiency before this committee, and a question was brought up because of the controller's audit on departments collecting when people are fined for whatever, and how the poor lack of collection that we have within the police department, fire department, other entities. Your responsibility involved the enforcement aspect.
Yes.
Are there fines attached to the enforcement aspect? And is there a process to collect those fines? Fines,
Yes.
fees, anything into the city budget, city treasury?
Yes, within the last year, we've gone through a whole series of efficiencies, especially to collect fees, especially the fact that we are general funded. We have an automated system where when we write an order in our computer system, and that order involves work done without a permit, there's a non-compliance fee or an investigation fee that's attached to the permit, and that's a pretty hefty fee. It's twice the amount of the permit fee, or a minimum of $400, and that's automatically being put on these permits when they get permits to fix corrections or violations on their property.
But are we collecting that? That's the question.
Well, that is being automatically collected when they obtain their permit. As far as non-compliance fees,
Goes up front, okay.
yes, non-compliance fees. After 15 days after an order is issued, we are allowed to make an inspection. If they're still in violation, we can impose a non-compliance fee. It's very minimal right now, but that fee is being assessed on the properties. Our department is working with a person that does liens on properties. So if these fees aren't paid, eventually we will collect. Might take 5 years, but we'll get that money, even if it involves a lien on a property.
Because a lot of departments are getting criticized for not following the directive, or in 5 days and 30 days.
Right.
And they're supposed to follow this process, which is in place, but they're not following it. And then we account for millions of dollars that's supposed to come into city treasury to keep the city moving. So there's a lot of people who are answering why they didn't follow what the directive was. So you guys are good with that, collecting the money.
May I supplement to Mr. Rubin's comment? Actually, because of Mr. Rubin's hardworking effort last year, our department, we have increased our general fund revenue from approximately $1.9 million to close to $2.9 million, because we have been, doing very aggressively to collect our non-compliance fees, and we also automate the system for the investigation fee. In addition to that, also Mr. Rubin and I came up with a process so that we could enforce some fees that we never did before. So next year we would expect our general fund revenue should jump to approximately $3.5 million.
That's if you get somebody as good as him, right?
And we do have a candidate who is also an assistant general manager already, and we're going to move this person to this position once this position gets exempted.
What title is Mr. Laura?
Mr. Laura's classification, civil service classification, is Assistant Deputy Superintendent of Building 2.
Now, is that higher than?
That is the one step lower than,
Will there be a promotion for him?
No, we're not recommending that you fill that position with him. Don't get us wrong.
Dave,
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
Look out for my buddy Dave.
We need to have a really good manager to handle this matter.
That's got to be a stressful position.
Yeah, very stressful.
Let me ask you this: at 37 years, what do you think about your position here in the city family?
It's been wonderful. My father, I was going to say graduate, he retired from the city of LA after 30 years. He worked in building safety. He was able to promote up to a principal inspector, and he loved his job, and it showed in the family. So, me jumping into building safety was just a natural fit, and I loved it. And
Your dad still alive?
No, he passed away about 4 years ago.
I hear that.
So you enjoyed that pension, though?
He enjoyed it. He got a good 10 years of life after he retired.
Good.
But I plan to get a lot more.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's what my son's going to say one day when I'm gone.
And you mentioned that there's 180 positions under this position.
Yes, sir.
What are the titles of those 180?
Okay, we have inspectors, we have senior inspectors, we have principal inspectors, we have 3 chief inspectors, and we have 1 assistant deputy superintendent position, which we have been, we has been kept vacant for the past year for salary saving. Also, we do have some support staff like clerk typists, senior clerk typists.
Okay, sounds like that's pretty efficient ratio there. I just have one more question. If things get tight at building and safety, is the first position to go David Laras? I was just joking. That was the ghost of Bill Fujioka in the building. Never mind.
Yeah, we heard that Bill Fujioka is making an offer to Mr. Lara to go to work for the county. So we don't know how true that is yet. So
I talked to Mr. Fujioka yesterday, as a matter of fact, on another matter, and he sends his best to all the city people. He's enjoying it over there.
all right.
He's recruiting half the city force.
Yeah, that's right.
He's doing that. Mr. Parks.
Yeah. Let me just ask, would you say this was one of the enterprise fund positions, or this is a general fund position?
This is a general fund position. However, within the jurisdiction of this particular position, this position is responsible for generating fees for, as I just mentioned, approximately $3 million, and next year will be $3.5 million.
And those are general fund fees.
Those are all general fund fees.
Okay, so the issue, so these are revenue producing unit, but now what positions go into the enterprise fund?
And we have a total of 4 separate bureaus within the Department of Building Safety. This is the Co-Enforcement Bureau, and this is pretty much the only bureau for general fund supported. The other 3 bureaus, we have an engineering bureau, which we do all the plan check and report review with all the engineers. Then we have an inspection bureau, where we inspect all the new construction for residential building, for apartments, for high-rise buildings. And then we have, of course, the Resource Management Bureau with our emergency response, with our personnel and with training and administration, stuff like that. All the other 3 bureaus are on enterprise fund.
Thank you. So you shouldn't.
Mr. Cardenas, you gonna make the motion on this?
Yeah. You shouldn't make that comment about Mr. Lauren. His picture will be in the next budget book.
That'll be good. With a hat. Have they arranged for you to come down to council for the formal farewell with the resolution?
Yes, sir. In fact, it's set on April 4th in the Valley.
I want to make sure that was taken care of for you.
And Mr. Rubin did not mention that his son actually is also working for the city. And his wife is also working in the city of Los Angeles.
I'll tell you, my dad did a great sales job.
You did?
Where does your son work?
Housing department. He's an inspector with the housing department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son joined the police department. Mr. Parks' son works in his office. A lot of family traditions here.
Yeah.
And it's a good city. It's done good for me, and mine nearly 40 years with it. You got like 80 years with it?
That's funny.
Okay, so that motion moves forward. Congratulations, and good luck in retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dave, thank you. Okay, our final item, number 5.
The mayor has submitted a 6-month extension for Ms. Kelly Hawkins' temporary appointment as the interim executive director of the Commission on the Status of Women, and Ms. Hawkins is here.
Kelly.
Oh, good afternoon, council members.
I thought you wanted to move on to something else.
I'm just here to serve the city.
That's a good
Loyal
answer.
soldier.
Good answer.
Yeah, wherever you need me, I'll be there.
So we're moving to consolidate this with other departments. So it's probably good to have you there in a temporary capacity, so you don't end up getting a full-time position there, since we're trying to consolidate some of these departments. So
Okay.
I recommend that we continue for 6 months. And
I don't have any questions. I don't know if the budget chairman has any questions. Obviously, we consolidate, then she'll be sitting somewhere else.
well, Kelly will be moved somewhere. She's a loyal soldier.
Okay.
Wherever the demand is, she'll be there.
That's right.
Waiting for Mr. Parks' comments. Anything?
No, I was just going to ask, just on the status, is there a worldwide search, or just, do we know, or are you part of the process for the permanent position, or just, I was just wondering what the status was.
Right, so in terms of the status to look for the permanent executive director, the search has not been really, or started. They're still the mayor's office is still working with the personnel department to put together a job description that would best serve the needs of the commission. So that's where they are on that, hence the 6-month extension.
You've been there 6 months already?
It'll be 6 months in April.
Seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
It really does.
I know. No.
That's right. I would just like to say, as being an outsider coming into the Commission on the Status of Women, one who was very skeptical as to what the department did, was, their reason for this, being a product of single-sex education, where does the Commission on the Status of Women fit in today's city that we live in? And what I do want to just emphasize to you all as you make your decisions around the budget and understanding that these are very tight budget times, that there is a place for the Commission on the Status of Women. In terms of its focus, though, I would recommend that you focus primarily on policy and connecting that policy to the communities. So looking at the reports of the Advancement Project, looking at the Controller's Report, looking at United Way's State of Black Los Angeles, State of Latinos in Los Angeles, and really see what those recommendations are. And the commission shouldn't be outside of that discussion, but instead, as it has not been in the past, it should be a part of that solution. We are here to serve as putting some type of gender lens on the issue. When you look at gang violence, really look at, it starts in the home with domestic violence. And if we don't address this issue of domestic violence, we can't be mad when we see the number of crime escalating on our streets with the gangs, with the just average criminal on the street. So just something to think about if it's worth anything. So thanks.
Yeah. Let me just ask, You just reminded me that somebody was doing an evaluation. Is that done?
Right, so all
Is
the
that what you
council
call the
members.
advancement? Is that?
No, that's not the advancement project. I'm referring to Connie Rice's
Okay.
organization. But I can send you,
Okay.
the mayor's office did send that report to me about 2 weeks ago. I can send that to the council as a whole and get it to you. But again, I think the report in itself, if you haven't seen it, really speaks to what you've all been saying all along, is you need to really focus your efforts on what the needs of the women in the community are looking for, and not so much try to recreate the wheel, if I might say. One of the things that I've started to do is really see what partnerships can exist with local universities, our 2 years and our 4-year institutions, if we're looking at building a pipeline of leadership of women in non-traditional careers, or looking at how we can actually analyze some of the policy with the experts at the table. If we're under the CEDAW ordinance, what type of survey tools are being created? Is it those that are employed by the City of Los Angeles, or are we actually looking to the academic experts that do surveys all the time? And I think that hasn't been done in the past, and so the consortium of universities that we're looking at really cover the whole city and will serve as a tool to the city, you as policymakers, but also us as a commission, to better serve your needs as it relates to advocating for women and young girls. Because when you address issues that are impacting women and young girls, you are addressing issues across the board in your communities.
You get involved in that task force that we discussed earlier?
The Human Trafficking Task Force, we are a part of that task force. As you will see in the budget proposal, though, that I had delivered to you about 3 weeks ago. And as you all know, I mentioned that I would deliver the budget post the report from Abby Liebman, so that was done. I am deleting the human trafficking position. However, what we're looking at doing is more of how do you answer the question of violence against women as a whole. So we will continue to participate in convening those trainings for city employees. And, you know, I think the issue of leadership is always a question of why things were done the way that they were done in the past. But I am very proud to say, as one that was skeptical of whether or not we should be doing human trafficking or not, no, we're not going to do human trafficking full time, but we will have a voice at the table, and we will convene those groups as it relates to city employees to make sure that those city departments are trained. And so since I've been at the commission, we've done at least 10 trainings. CDD is coming up next week. We have over 300 employees that we're training. And so my understanding through Councilmember Cardenas' motion, we were to train city employees. And while we might not be able to train all of them, it's important that we train the first responders and those that are actually out in the field. So we're not training necessarily your senior clerk typists, but we are training those that are agents out within the city.
You know, talking about training, it brings up a point. Water and Power has a program that has received some criticism, some controversy. Has the Commission on Status of Women ever thought about developing a similar program for all? Because apparently it's only the city employees at Water and Power, and the rest of the city employees that are going to have children are excluded from that. Have we ever thought about developing that in-house with the Status of Women without the controversy that's developed from Water and Power?
Right. And so I actually have spoken with the general manager at Water and Power, because we should have been using DWP as the model and using the commission as the place for where the money would actually come out of. Hence, he would not have been attacked the way that he was by the media. If we serve to show that there are models that we can create, the commission for a very long time has tried to do the direct service provider thing, and that's not our role. Our role is to advocate on policy. Our role is to—
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Our role is to incubate the program and let it go free. So, for instance, you have a YWAR program, the Young Women's Program. For some reason, you decide to move that out. That's what's supposed to happen. It's not supposed to just stay there and not be replicated. And so, for instance, with the DWP issue around lactation specialists, I think that's definitely something that we can begin to really have replicated within the other city departments. I think you do need the will of those department managers to do that, but I don't think that's going to be the big issue there for us. And so I will continue to discuss this with the general manager and his colleagues as it relates to how we can make, greater or provide greater access to this service, because it is needed. Not that I'm a mother yet, but I am aware of the issue and think it's something that's important for women.
Well, I think that reduces the criticism. And I remember they used to have a thing, they used to have a program where you'd like take your lunch and they have seminars or things like the lunch deal.
Right, we're doing brown bag seminars.
Brown bag seminars.
And so they'll actually start during April with Sexual Assault Month. Of course, it'll be more so obviously around the Denim Day project. This will be the first time that the commission actually is doing more than coming to council on Friday. We actually have been a part of the planning. The department heads will have the opportunity to have an actual teach-in or brown bag, as you might say, for their employees, especially if they're not in City Hall. I think a lot of times we in City Hall think everybody's in City Hall. No, it's throughout the city of Los Angeles. And so through Peace Over Violence, they will provide us with the speakers, if that is the will of the department head. But we will also hold some sessions here in City Hall on April 23rd, which is Denim Day.
But what I was getting to is that brown bag.
Right, we will continue to do brown bags on other issues around whether it's child care issues
Right.
for women in the city, whether it's, oops, I'm retiring, I'm not sure what that looks like for me. Also in regards to, I think, the issue around domestic violence, we've got to find a creative way to talk about the issue right now, because whether you're rich and making six figures or whether you're making 20 cents an hour, you're still at risk for the issues. So we can't continue to put this issue in this box and say, oh, it's the women that are at risk. Well, you know what? I'm at risk, woman. Every day I walk out of my house, I'm at risk. Or every time I come into my house, I'm at risk. So there's a couple of things that you'll start to see. You know, the commission now has the electronic newsletter that you probably see every month and probably say, oh, Lord, another piece of mail. But it's one way that we can, highlight women that are not necessarily general managers, because if you think about it, general managers are here today and gone tomorrow. And if we're going to build our pipeline of leadership, we've got to look at those that we have in place now. And so over the past 4 months, we've just looked at which women, you know, whether it's the women's coordinator at LAPD or whether it's the, assistant general manager at El Pueblo, just really starting to push those positions out so that people are not at loss. And not to say that I was a bad choice for this job, but I think it would have been easier to find someone that had been in civil service to perform this duty, but we didn't have that in place. So the newsletter seeks to not only showcase the women in City Hall, but also the women in city government. Also shows you which legislation we're looking at and which pieces of legislation our commission has actually taken a position on. So hopefully it's helpful in the next 6 months or that I'm here. So.
All right.
Well, Ms. Hawkins, I appreciate the education you've given us today and the updating, but I just want to warn you, get used to being in front of this committee on temporary assignments, because you're the kind of personality and the thinker that we need when we need a fix-it person to go into a department and get them straightened out, get them back in order before we put them into on their permanent road. So that's a compliment to you.
Thank you
get
very
used to it.
much.
There aren't that many people who can actually attack issues and go from, in this case, women's issues, and then focus on that, and then go to maybe something else that has a totally different purpose or flavor or what have you, and then to be able to say, I think I can help this process, and then put them in place and set them up and set them straight. So, for somebody who hasn't been around as long as you, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just a little relief in the back of your heads, if this helps, I am going after external funding right now via the Women's Foundation, and we also are going after a grant through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and some other foundations. But thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to serve.
You're always so polite, positive, and right. Anything? Okay, that's it. We got it. Thank you. We conclude at 4:09.